The airport felt like a living machine, full of movement, sound, and silent stories. People hurried with heavy bags and tired faces, all trying to reach somewhere important. No one paid attention to the quiet man walking through the crowd in a simple black jacket with a small backpack on his shoulder. Many of them would not even recognize him, and that was exactly how he preferred it. That man was Keanu Reeves. He walked with calm steps, almost invisible, blending into the ordinary world with an energy that felt peaceful. There was no assistant around him, no loud voice, no special treatment. He waited in the same line as everyone else. The staff at the counter greeted him politely, but no one acted shocked or overly excited. It was as if the universe itself agreed to keep his presence quiet. Keanu had finished a long week of work, but he showed no trace of exhaustion on his face. What he carried instead was a quiet kindness, the type that did not need attention or applause. The type of kindness that feels like a natural part of a person's breath. On the other side of the terminal, another passenger arrived at the gate. Her steps were slower, and her eyes showed the tiredness of long days and late nights on set. It was Sandra Bullock. She carried herself with grace, even in her exhaustion. Her smile was still soft when she thanked the airport worker who guided her in the right direction. She greeted every person who spoke to her, even if they did not know who she was. She did not act like a star. She acted like someone who still remembered the value of small respect. They were not traveling together. They had not planned anything. They were not even aware they would be on the same flight. Destiny simply placed them in the same space on an ordinary evening flight that would become unforgettable. The airline staff made an announcement that changed the energy around the gate. There had been an internal system error. The aircraft had only one luxury suite left available. Almost everyone in the line turned their head. The luxury suite was not just a seat. It was a private room with a bed, a door, and comfort that most passengers only dreamed about. The staff looked at her screen and called the name of the first eligible passenger. "Mr. Reeves, you have been selected for the complimentary upgrade." Everyone in the line looked around for the person with that name. Keanu stepped forward slowly. He gave a small nod. The staff smiled and handed him the upgrade confirmation, but Keanu did not take it. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Please give it to someone else." The staff blinked. Unsure she heard correctly, "Sir, it is a free upgrade. It is the only luxury seat left on the flight." Keanu smiled again, the soft kind of smile that carried no pride. "I am fine in my original seat. I do not need the suite. Maybe someone else will rest better than I will." The staff tried to explain again, thinking he misunderstood. People around him watched with confusion. No one ever refused an upgrade, not even ordinary passengers. And here was a world-famous actor, giving it away without hesitation. Keanu did not change his mind. The staff confirmed again, just to be sure. "You want to give up the luxury suite, sir?" "Yes, you can give it to whoever needs it more." He stepped back as if the decision was already gone from his hands. There was no drama, no speech, no joking tone. It was simply done. His name was crossed out, and the system selected the next eligible passenger. The name that appeared was Sandra Bullock. She walked forward, unaware of what had just happened. The staff handed her the new pass and said she had been upgraded to the luxury suite. Sandra thanked her politely, surprised but grateful. She had been running on very little sleep. The idea of resting properly sounded like a blessing. She walked to the boarding area, not knowing the truth. She never saw Keanu refuse the seat. She never heard the conversation. She did not even know he was on the same flight. Keanu returned to the regular boarding line, holding the same simple ticket he arrived with. No one in the line reacted. Most passengers still did not realize who he was. Maybe that was why he liked it there. No expectations, no cameras, no spotlight, just normal life. When the boarding call began, Sandra entered first through the premium lane. She turned to thank the crew. She did not realize yet that the rest she would receive was a gift born from silent kindness. Keanu waited patiently for his turn. He walked into the plane and looked for his seat. It was not even a window seat. It was a middle seat in the economy section, between two strangers who had no idea who was sitting beside them. He placed his backpack under the seat. adjusted his posture, and gave a small smile to the elderly man on his right. Then he helped the woman on his left lift her carry-on bag without saying a word about it. The engines roared. The plane lifted. The sky swallowed the city lights below. Inside the luxury suite, Sandra felt relief in her body for the first time in days. She closed her eyes without knowing the story behind the comfort she received. In the economy row, Keanu sat with his knees slightly pressed, the same as any other passenger. But his eyes carried peace. Kindness does not make a seat softer, yet it makes the heart lighter. Time passed. The flight attendants began serving food trays. One passenger across the aisle had fallen asleep and missed the meal. Keanu noticed. When the attendant came to collect trash, he asked politely if the extra meal could be saved for the sleeping man. He spoke with such quiet respect that the attendant nodded without hesitation. A few rows away, a young boy was struggling to calm himself because his ears hurt from the pressure change. His mother looked worried and embarrassed. Keanu opened his backpack slowly and took out a pair of soft foam earplugs. He handed them to the mother with a reassuring smile. The boy calmed down. None of these moments were loud. No one recorded them. No one shouted his name. They were simple acts invisible to most, but they were pieces of a truth people rarely see. Real kindness is not performance. It is a habit. In the suite, Sandra did not feel like sleeping anymore. Something inside her felt unsettled. She kept wondering how she got upgraded because she had not requested it. Her career had taught her many things, including the fact that nothing was ever random in the entertainment world. Still, she tried to believe this time was different. The flight continued. Gentle darkness filled the cabin. The only sounds were engines, soft breathing, and quiet thoughts. Then came a moment that would change everything for the audience. But not yet for the characters. One of the crew members, during a quiet break, whispered to another attendant, "Do you know what just happened before boarding?" Keanu Reeves gave up the luxury suite. He refused it completely. That is why Sandra got it. The other attendant was stunned. He refused it? Why would someone refuse something like that? The first attendant shook her head. Apparently, this is not the first time. One of the senior crew members said he has done this on other flights, too. They did not know that time itself was listening to their words, preparing to deliver them to the right ears later. Hours passed. The plane landed. Passengers stretched their arms, gathered their belongings, and prepared for the usual rush toward the exit. Sandra exited first. She gave a kind thank you to the staff. She still did not know the truth. But truth always has a way of waiting for the right moment to speak. Keanu exited near the end of the line. He carried only his small backpack. No one noticed that the man who could have slept in silk spent the night sitting upright between two strangers. He did not look uncomfortable. He looked whole. Fate was not finished yet. The reveal had not come. The emotional turn that would tighten every viewer's heart was still waiting. And because the story was not about fame, nor about reward, the world would soon learn something important. The greatest acts of kindness are done in silence, and the most powerful moments of respect are born when no one is watching. But the moment of truth was getting closer. Sandra was about to discover what really happened. And when she did, it would not just surprise her, it would change how millions of people understood humility. It would show that the strongest person in the room is often the one who does not need the spotlight at all, and the real story was only beginning. The airport walkway felt longer than usual as passengers moved forward in a slow line, each person trying to leave the plane and return to normal life. Sandra walked ahead, her steps steady but her thoughts unsettled. The comfort she received during the flight did not feel accidental. Something inside her kept repeating a quiet question she could not ignore. Why me? She had been thankful for the upgrade. She had even closed her eyes and rested for a while, but there was a part of her that never fully relaxed. The world she lived in had taught her many times that unseen stories exist behind simple moments. Nothing ever just happens. Someone always makes a choice. And she felt that someone had made a choice long before she sat down in that suite. Behind her, Keanu walked at the same calm pace he had maintained throughout the journey. He did not move faster or slower than anyone else. He blended into the crowd so naturally that most passengers did not even notice that a global star was walking among them with nothing More than a backpack and an ordinary seat number. It was only when they reached the baggage claim area that a small piece of destiny decided to reveal itself a flight attendant. The same one who witnessed the earlier exchange walked by and stopped for a moment. She recognized Sandra and gave a polite smile. "I hope you had a comfortable flight, Miss Bullock." Sandra smiled back and nodded. "Thank you." It was more restful than I expected. "I appreciate it." The attendant hesitated. Her voice lowered a bit, as if speaking a line she was not sure she was allowed to say. It was actually meant for someone else at first. Sandra looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" The attendant looked around to make sure no one else was listening. Then she leaned closer. "The upgrade was originally assigned to Keanu Reeves. He refused it and asked us to give it to someone who might need it more." For a moment, Sandra thought she misheard her. She repeated the words in her mind, slower, clearer. Keanu refused the luxury suite and gave it to someone else. That someone was here. Quiet shock traveled through her chest. She had not even spoken to him on the flight. He had not approached her. He had not hinted at anything. He had simply given away the most comfortable seat on the plane without saying a single word about it. Sandra turned her head, searching the area. There were many people, many suitcases, many small stories happening at the same time, but she could not see him. The attendant continued speaking, unaware of how deeply those words were affecting Sandra. He said he was fine where he was, and that someone else might need the rest more. He did not even want us to mention it. Sandra felt a strange mix of emotion. Respect, yes. Surprise, yes. But also something like quiet sadness, because she realized that the world rarely sees the true version of someone like him. The news prefers noise. The internet prefers gossip. Yet here was a story no camera would ever capture unless someone chose to speak. She thanked the attendant and walked a few steps away. She breathed slowly. Memories from the past began to rise. She had worked with him before. She had seen his calm nature on set. She remembered how he treated every crew member like an equal, but that was years ago. Time changes people, or so she thought. Now she wondered if time had not changed him at all. Maybe the world had changed, but he had stayed the same. She spotted him at last. He was standing near the carousel, helping an old woman lift her suitcase. No one asked him to. No one even noticed who he was. He just did it because it was natural to him. Sandra walked closer. She did not speak yet. She just watched him, as if studying the truth before naming it. He placed the suitcase gently beside the woman and gave her a warm nod. She thanked him. Keanu stepped back, ready to continue with his day. That was when Sandra spoke. "You gave up the luxury seat." Her voice was soft, but the words carried weight. Keanu turned and saw her. He gave a small smile, the kind that did not pretend or perform. "I figured you might need it more." She looked at him with quiet disbelief. "Why would you do that without telling me?" He paused. His answer was simple. "Because kindness does not need an audience." The words hung in the air. No music, no speech, no spotlight. Just truth. Sandra wanted to say thank you, but the word felt too small. She wanted to explain how much that rest meant to her, but even that felt incomplete. What touched her was not the seat. It was the act, the choice, the silent intention behind it. Before she could reply, a group of people recognized her and started gathering. Cameras rose. Voices filled the space. The moment of honesty was already being swallowed by the world. Keanu stepped aside, letting the attention fall on her instead of him. He did not move closer. He did not wait for praise. He simply picked up his backpack and began walking toward the exit, unnoticed again. Sandra watched him leave. She felt something unusual in her chest. It was not guilt. It was not sadness. It was something deeper. A realization. Some people do good things because they want to be seen doing them. Others do good things because they cannot be any other way. Keanu belonged to the second kind, but Sandra was not ready to let the story end so easily. She knew the world needed stories like this, especially now. The type of stories that did not divide people, did not judge, did not expect anything in return. The type that reminded people that humanity still existed in quiet corners. She made a decision. She would find him again before the day ended. But what she did not know was this. Keanu's quiet act on that flight was not a single rare choice. It was a pattern, a history, a hidden routine that no one had recorded, and soon she was going to learn that the refusal of the luxury seat was only the beginning. The day continued. Paparazzi photos of Sandra at the airport began to appear online. Headlines formed their usual guesses. None of them knew the real story. Not yet. Sandra sat in the back of a small car sent by her team. She watched the city pass by through the window. People walking, people working, people living their lives without knowing that a silent example of respect had just happened above the clouds. She replayed the small details in her mind. The way the attendant spoke, the way Keanu answered, the humility in his posture, the lack of pride in his voice. It was not something he did to impress her. In fact, he never even planned for her to find out. That was the part that hit deepest. After some time, her driver asked if she wanted to go straight to the hotel. She shook her head. "No. Can you take me to the city center instead? I need to meet someone." She did not explain further. She did not need to. She knew there was only one place Keanu would go after a flight like that. Not a luxury car, not a press meeting, not a private service. He always stayed simple, even when he had every chance not to. She reached the city streets that were alive with noise and movement. She stepped out, still in the clothes she traveled in. She did not call anyone. She simply walked, letting memory guide her. Years ago, during filming, he once mentioned that he liked walking in a city after a long flight. He said it helped him feel like a regular person in a world that often tried to separate him. And just as the sun began to touch the top of the buildings, she saw him. Keanu was sitting on a bench under a quiet tree, drinking coffee from a paper cup. No security, no attention, no rush, just peace. She walked toward him. He noticed and gave a soft nod. "You found me." She smiled a little. "I was curious." Keanu placed the cup beside him and looked at her with a calm expression. "Curiosity is good. It means you are still interested in people." Sandra sat down beside him, not too close, not too far. Both of them stayed silent for a moment. The city around them continued moving, but the air between them felt still, like a moment preserved for reflection. Finally, she spoke. That seat meant something today, not because it was luxury, but because someone chose to give it away when they did not have to. Keanu looked ahead, not at her. Maybe the world needs more people who do things without needing to explain them. She turned to him, with a serious but gentle voice. But maybe the world also needs to know those people exist. Keanu stayed silent. His silence was never cold. It was thoughtful. Like he respected the weight of every word before deciding whether to add one more. After a while, he replied, "If you tell the world, it will stop being about the kindness and start being about the person, and then the message dies." Sandra understood. She truly did. But there was something he did not know, a truth she had not learned yet. What he did that day was not a single act. It was part of a long pattern of silent humanity. And soon, not by her choice, not by his choice, but by life's choice, that truth was going to surface. And when it did, people would not just learn about a luxury seat. They would learn about a hidden life of humble actions that no one ever posted online, and the twist waiting ahead would not only shock people, it would change how they think about fame, about kindness, about what greatness really is. The story was only beginning to open. The city continued moving around them like a river of sound and footsteps. But the bench where they sat felt almost untouched by time. Sandra watched Keanu as he spoke with quiet honesty, and she realized something that unsettled her in a new way. He was not trying to be humble. He simply was. She leaned back slowly and let her thoughts settle. The world knew him as a movie star, a face on posters, a name in headlines. But none of those stories ever spoke about the man who refused comfort without reason, who gave away what others would fight to keep, who blended into the world instead of standing above it. She looked at him again. "How many times have you done something like this?" Keanu did not answer immediately. He breathed in, as if taking time to look through his own memories. "I do not count." That answer alone carried a strange weight. It told her everything and nothing at the same time. But Sandra was no longer just curious. She felt something deeper, almost like responsibility. The world rarely tells the right stories about people. And when it finally finds a real one, it often arrives too late. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me, are you Keanu Reeves?" They both turned. A young man stood a few steps away. He looked nervous, not because of fame, but because of respect. He was holding a small paper box in his hands. Keanu nodded gently. The young man said, "I do not want a picture or anything. I just wanted to say thank you. You helped my father once at the subway station years ago. You sat with him until the ambulance came. He never said who you were. We only found out later." Sandra watched Keanu carefully. His expression did not change, but his eyes softened. The young man continued. "Most people walked past him that day, but you stopped. You held his hand. You talked to him like he mattered. He never forgot that." Keanu placed a hand over his heart in silence. A small gesture, a big meaning. The young man did not stay long. He thanked him again and walked away. Sandra looked at Keanu, stunned. "You helped a stranger in a subway and never told anyone." He shook his head. "Why would I tell anyone that? Because most people only help others when they know someone is watching." His answer was quiet, but clear. That is why most people never understand what real kindness is. The air felt heavier now, not in a painful way, but in a truthful way. Sandra could feel the story taking a new shape. This was not about a seat on a plane anymore. This was a window into the kind of person the world rarely gets to see. But something else was about to happen, something that would open the next layer of the story. A middle-aged woman approached them slowly. She looked familiar, but not from anything public. She held a grocery bag in one hand. When she saw Keanu, her face lit up with a warm recognition, not the kind born from movies, but from real memories. "I hoped I would see you again someday," she said. Keanu stood up and greeted her with the same respect he would give a world leader. "How is your son now?" he asked. The woman smiled, and tears softened her eyes. "He is better. He still talks about the day you rode the bus with him when no one else would sit near him because of his medical mask. You made him feel normal. You made him feel seen." Sandra felt something in her heart shift. She could almost feel the story forming invisible threads that connected moment to moment, stranger to stranger, without any spotlight or applause. Keanu nodded again, but he did not act like he had done anything extraordinary. He acted like this was simply the right shape for a human soul to take. After the woman left, Sandra spoke again, but this time her voice was slower. "So this is not new. This is who you have always been," Keanu did not confirm. He did not deny. He did not need to. Truth has its own presence. Sandra looked up at the sky, then back at him. "Do you ever feel tired of carrying so much kindness without letting anyone know?" Keanu looked at her with eyes that carried years of quiet experience. Kindness does not take energy. Ego does. She sat with those words. She held them like a stone in her hand, heavy, real, undeniable. But the story was not finished. Destiny was preparing something bigger, a deeper truth, a hidden layer that none of them had touched yet. A phone rang. Sandra checked hers, but it was not her call. Keanu reached into his pocket and answered softly. A voice on the other side spoke with concern. He listened. His expression changed slightly. Something serious had entered the air. He nodded, ended the call, and stood up. Sandra rose too. "Is everything all right?" Keanu looked at her, and for the first time since the airport, there was a visible change in his eyes. Something heavier than kindness. Something connected to the past. "I need to go somewhere," he said. "Can I come with you?" Sandra asked carefully. He paused. He already knew the future was moving toward a moment he could not stop. Maybe it was time someone else saw the full truth. "Yes," he said softly. They began walking. The streets shifted from wide to narrow, from loud to quiet. The world around them dimmed as if drawing focus to the story that was about to unfold. They reached a modest care center, not a hospital, not a public building, something personal, something hidden from fame. Keanu paused before entering. "Before we walk in," he said, "I want you to understand something. The world only knows a part of who we are. The rest is the part we live when no one is watching. Sandra nodded. Her heart was already beating faster. She could feel that the next moments would not just surprise her. They would rewrite everything she thought she understood about him. They walked inside. The quiet hallways smelled of medicine and soft laundry. People moved slowly, some in wheelchairs, some with nurses. But the place did not feel sad. It felt peaceful, like a place built for dignity. Keanu led her to a private room. Inside was an elderly man, peaceful, weakened, but holding a gentle smile. Sandra looked at Keanu. "Who is he?" Keanu's voice dropped to a whisper. "He is the reason I learned to live the way I do." The room filled with a silence that carried more meaning than words could hold. This was the doorway to the past. This was the beginning of the real reveal, and the shock that would come later was already waiting. The room was quiet, filled with a soft light that came through a half-open window. The elderly man on the bed breathed slowly, his eyes half closed but still aware of the world around him. He looked fragile, yet there was something peaceful in the way he rested. Keanu walked closer, and the man's eyes lit up with recognition. His weak smile grew not from surprise, but from familiarity. This was not a visit of a famous actor. This was a visit of someone who had been there many times before. Sandra stood beside the door, watching silently. She did not speak because she understood that the moment was not hers to lead. Keanu greeted the man softly. "Hi, Dad. I am here." Sandra felt her heart move. The man was not a stranger. He was Keanu's father. Keanu pulled a chair close and sat beside him. He took the man's hand gently, like he had done it 1,000 times. There was no need for words between them. Their silence carried history. The old man spoke slowly, his voice calm but weak. "You came again." "You always do," Keanu smiled. "Of course. I always will." The man turned his head slightly and looked at Sandra. His eyes were tired but still kind. "Is she a friend?" Keanu nodded. "Yes, she is someone who should know the truth." Those words held weight. Sandra understood that this room did not just hold a person. It held a story. The old man continued speaking, though every breath seemed to cost him effort. He was not always like this. When he was young, he was quiet, but he was not always gentle. Life changed him. Life taught him. Keanu listened respectfully. He did not interrupt. The story belonged to his father now. The old man looked at Sandra again. "There was a time when I made mistakes, many mistakes. I was not there for him. I was not the father I should have been. I thought success mattered more than presence. I thought pride mattered more than love." His voice broke slightly, but he kept speaking. "And when I grew older, when I finally understood what I had lost, I thought he would be angry. I thought he would walk away and never come back." Sandra already understood the shape of the story, but her heart wanted to hear every word. "But he did not leave me. He forgave me. He gave me more care than I ever gave him." Keanu's eyes softened, but he did not speak. He just held his father's hand a little tighter. The old man breathed deeper, as if gathering the strength for one last truth. "He learned something I never learned. He learned that kindness is not a reaction. It is a decision. It is something you give even when you receive nothing. That is why he lives the way he does. That is why he gives without waiting for applause. Because he knows silence is not emptiness. Silence is where love hides." The room fell quiet. And then, slowly, Sandra understood everything. Keanu did not refuse the luxury seat to impress anyone. He did not help strangers because he wanted to feel good. He did not live simply because he liked. He lived that way because he had seen what pride destroys and what forgiveness can rebuild. It was not about comfort, it was about meaning. The old man reached out his hand toward Sandra. She held it gently. "People think greatness is loud," he said softly. "But true greatness is quiet. It is in the seat you give away, the hand you hold, the moment you choose mercy over ego." A tear rolled down Sandra's cheek, not from sadness, but from something deeper. From respect. Keanu stood up and adjusted the blanket over his father with the same calm care he showed the passengers on the plane. Nothing in his kindness changed with audience or setting. He turned to Sandra. "Now you know." Her voice was quiet. "Yes, and now I understand why the world never heard this story." Keanu nodded. Some stories are not meant to be shouted. They are meant to be lived. She looked at him, and for the first time truly saw the man behind the fame. A man who chose humility not as a performance, but as a way of breathing. But this was not the end, because outside this room the world was already beginning. To speak, a small rumor had started spreading online, and soon the silent story would no longer be silent. The real twist was still on its way. The air outside the care center felt different after they stepped out. It was not colder or darker, but heavier in a way that only truth can make it feel. Sandra walked beside Keanu in silence. Her thoughts were no longer simple curiosity. Now they carried something deeper, something she had not expected to feel when the day began. She had seen good people before. She had seen kind gestures, charity events, public speeches, warm smiles in front of cameras. But what she saw inside that small, quiet room was not performance. It was not a moment for a headline. It was a life being lived in private, with no audience except the person who once failed him. And still, he stayed. Still, he cared. They reached a corner of the street where cars moved in soft lines and neon signs lit the windows of small restaurants. Keanu stopped walking. "Thank you for coming," he said. Sandra turned to him. "You did not bring me there by accident. You wanted me to see something?" He shook his head slowly. "I did not bring you to show anything. I brought you so you would understand why I do not want any of this to become a story." She understood, but there was something inside her that was still unsettled. "People think they know you," she said softly, "but they only know the version they are shown." Keanu smiled in a way that carried no regret. "That is enough. I do not need more than that." But something unexpected was already beginning to move in the world outside their calm bubble. Far away, at the airport where they had first landed, someone had posted a short message online. It said, "Keanu Reeves refused a luxury suite on the flight today. He gave it to another passenger. He sat in economy the whole time." The message got a few likes at first. Nothing dramatic. But then someone else replied, "This is not the first time. My cousin was on a flight with him 2 years ago and he did the same thing." Within hours, the comments began to multiply. People searched for more stories. Screenshots appeared. Someone uploaded a blurry picture of Keanu sitting in the economy seat, legs slightly folded, helping an old passenger with her bag. It was not viral yet, but it was growing and growing fast. By the time Sandra reached her hotel, her phone was full of messages from friends, reporters, and studio contacts, all asking the same thing. Is it true what he did on the flight? She stared at the screen, feeling a conflict rise inside her. She had seen many stories in her life, but this one did not belong to the internet. It belonged to a quiet man who never asked for recognition. And yet, the world had already begun reaching for it. Keanu, meanwhile, walked to a train station instead of calling a private car. He stood in line like everyone else, bought a simple ticket, and waited. He had no idea yet what was spreading. He lived in a world where attention was something that happened to other people, not something he chased. But the world was changing, whether he wanted it or not. The next morning came with an unexpected storm of noise. News sites posted articles. "Actor refuses luxury seat, gives it away without saying a word. Is Keanu Reeves the most humble man in Hollywood?" Eyewitness reports reveal unknown acts of kindness. One headline stood out more than the others. "The world just discovered something Keanu has been doing for years." It was still early. The full wave had not hit yet, but it was coming. Sandra sat on the edge of her hotel bed, reading the articles. Her heart did not feel impressed. It felt uneasy, because she knew something the world did not know. The truth was bigger than the seat, bigger than the flight, bigger than the story going viral, and she knew it was only a matter of time before someone found out who the elderly man in the care center was and what that history meant. And when that happened, the story would no longer be about kindness. It would become a spectacle, a headline, a trend, a debate. She closed her phone and stood up. She needed to speak to Keanu. Keanu was sitting in the care center again, reading a book aloud to his father. His voice was calm, like ocean waves that respected the shore. The old man listened with quiet joy, even when his eyes closed from tiredness. A nurse entered the room softly and whispered to Keanu, "You have many calls waiting for you. I think something has happened." Keanu nodded and stepped out. He checked his phone. Hundreds of notifications, missed calls, messages, interviews requested. Journalists asking for statements, hashtags trending with his name. He sighed gently, not with anger, but with acceptance. He had seen this pattern before. The world loved to turn quiet moments into loud ones. He knew who would understand the weight of it. He called Sandra. She answered immediately. "You saw it?" she said. "Yes." "What do you want to do now?" Keanu paused. The hallway around him was silent. His thoughts were not. "I want nothing to change." Sandra understood the pain in that request. Because once the internet assigns value to something, the world rarely allows it to stay pure. "People are asking for confirmation," she said. "Then let them ask," he replied. "They want to turn it into a story." He shook his head, even though she could not see it. "But it is not a story. It is just something I did. And now it is gone. It does not need to live longer than the moment it happened." But it was already too late. Far away, someone had posted a photo of the care center and a caption, "He visits an old man every week. No cameras, no press, no announcement." The comments exploded. People began asking, who is the man? What is their connection? What is the full story? And then a rumor appeared. A wrong rumor. One that claimed the man was a stranger. Keanu financially supported a rumor that turned the story into something else. Something not true. Something missing the real. Meaning Keanu read the rumor and closed his eyes slowly. Sandra's voice on the phone softened. "This will get bigger. You know it will. And they will not stop guessing until they know everything." Keanu took a slow breath. "Then they will guess. But I will not turn kindness into content." Sandra felt the conflict inside her tighten. She respected him. She admired him. But she also feared something he did not see yet. The story was no longer silent, and silence was no longer enough to protect it. There was a moment of stillness between them. Sandra finally said, "What if the world needs to hear this one, not for you, not for fame, not for attention, but because people have forgotten what real respect looks like?" Keanu did not answer right away. He respected silence the way others respected applause. Then he said, "If the story finds its own voice, I will not stop it. But I will not be the one to speak it." Sandra closed her eyes. She knew what that meant. The choice was no longer his. The choice was now in the hands of the world. And the world does not always treat stories the way they deserve, but the real twist. The deepest truth, the one that would make the audience stop and hold their breath, was still hidden, because no one knew yet that the elderly man, the one Keanu cared for, the one Keanu forgave, the one he visited, in silence, was not just his father. He was the man who once left Keanu behind and broke his life apart. And the story of that past, the wounds, the forgiveness, the quiet rebuilding was about to surface. And when it did, the world would not just see kindness. They would see courage and a kind of love that does not disappear even when it is not deserved. The story kept spreading. What started as a single message about a refused luxury seat was now a growing wave of curiosity. More people began searching for hidden stories about Keanu's quiet acts. Some found old memories from strangers. Others posted moments they had never shared before. But the internet did what it always does. It did not stop at the surface. It wanted to know more. It wanted the full story. It wanted answers. Someone finally discovered the care center, and someone else posted his father's photo, and the questions began flooding in. Who is this man? Why does Keanu visit him so often? Is he a fan? Is he family? Is it charity? Sandra read every line with a heavy heart. She knew the truth. It was not charity. It was not a publicity act. It was not a fan moment. It was something human. something painful, something beautiful, and it belonged to Keanu and his past. She called him. When he answered, his voice was calm, but she could feel a quiet sadness under it. "They found the care center," she said. "I know. They want to know everything." Keanu walked to the window and looked at the sky. It was the same sky he had looked at as a child, when life felt uncertain and love felt distant. "I cannot change what they want," he said softly, "but I can choose what I give." Sandra spoke gently. "They are already creating stories without knowing the truth. If you stay silent, they will turn it into something else." Keanu thought about it for a long moment. "The truth is simple," he said at last. "My father left me when I was young. He was not there when I needed him. He made choices that hurt people. He was not the man I wished he was." Sandra listened with full attention. His voice did not shake, but it carried old pain. "But life gave me a chance to choose something different. I could repeat his mistakes, or I could break the pattern." He took a slow breath. "So I chose forgiveness, not because he earned it, but because I did not want to live with anger inside me." Sandra felt her eyes sting, not from sadness, but from the strength in his words. Keanu continued, "I do not care if the world calls it heroic. It is not heroic. It is human. We all get hurt. We all get disappointed. The real test is what we do after." She nodded, even though he could not see it. "Do you want this shared?" she asked. Keanu looked out the window again, as if speaking to the sky. "If the world hears it, let them hear it for the right reason. Not to praise me, but to remind them that forgiveness does not make you weak. It frees you." Sandra understood. A few days later, the truth finally came out. Not through a press conference, not through a dramatic interview, but through a short, simple message shared online by someone who knew the real story. It said, "The man Keanu visits is his father. Not a fan, not charity. A father who once abandoned him. And Keanu has been caring for him in silence for years. Not for attention, not for reward, but because he chose forgiveness over anger, respect over revenge, love over bitterness." The world stopped for a moment. There were no arguments, no scandals, no sides to choose for once. The internet went quiet in a different way. Not in boredom, but in reflection. People shared the message again and again, not to make it go viral, but because it made them feel something pure, something they had almost forgotten existed. Thousands of strangers wrote about forgiveness, about healing, about choosing kindness when it is hardest. And in the middle of all that noise, Keanu stayed silent exactly the way he lived before the story ever reached the world. Sandra met him one last time before leaving the city. They stood near the same bench where it all began. "The story is out," she said. "Yes, people are calling it the kindest reveal of the year." Keanu smiled softly. "Then maybe the world needed it." She looked at him with the same respect she felt the moment she saw him in that small care room. "You did not do any of this for applause," he nodded. "No, applause ends. Character does not." They walked for a moment without speaking. Then Sandra stopped. "I want to say something to you," she said gently. Keanu waited. "You refused the luxury seat on that flight, but you gave the world something much bigger. You showed that kindness still exists, real kindness, the kind that never asks to be seen." Keanu did not reply with words. He replied with silence, the same silence that held every act he ever did, every seat he ever gave away, every stranger he ever helped, every piece of love he ever gave. Without being asked, the kind of silence that speaks, louder than fame and in the end, the world. Did not remember the headline, they remembered the example. They remembered that greatness is not loud, kindness is not dramatic, and forgiveness is not weakness, it is strength, the quiet kind, the kind that lives and actions, not announcements. And somewhere in a small room, an old man rested with peace because the son he once lost came back, not with anger, but with love. And that is how the story ends, not with applause, not with noise, but with a seat given away, a hand held, a heart choosing the harder path.